Yes, Anjali,
Yes, ma'am.
you are asking something?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Just keep your microphone muted, okay? So that's all you will be getting in your MCQ test, right? So please be prepared for it and you will automatically get your result also then and there. So today we will continue from where we had started. Firstly, some questions, a few questions I will be asking you. Wait a second. Okay, let me take someone's name from here. Okay, Sanjana Meena is there. 9th A, Sanjana Meena, just give me a hello so that I can understand that you are there. Sanjana Meena. Sanjana Meena is there?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes. I'm going to ask you a question from this chapter which we are discussing right now. That is basic ICT skills. Okay. Your chapter is in what way does ICT help in the healthcare sector? In what way does ICT help in the healthcare sector? I will type the question.
Ma'am, maintaining records.
Healthcare sector. Is it only maintaining records? Records of what? Which records are we talking about?
Ma'am, records of the patients.
Yes, records of patients.
The
Okay.
Ma'am,
And
patient
what else
performing
can we do?
minor
Medicines.
surgeries.
Medicines they were provided.
Medicines are
surgeries,
provided.
Ma'am,
You
minor
can
surgeries.
have,
surgery,
wait, you can have,
All the
one second,
information
one
about
second,
the patient.
one second. If all of you speak at the same time, I won't be able to understand. Raise your hands. I'll give you the chance to speak. Okay, yes, Nior. Yes, Nior.
Ma'am, can question once?
Question?
Ma'am, can you
Repeat
repeat
again.
the question?
The question is here. One second. Let me type the question completely. How does ICT help in the healthcare sector?
Ma'am, we can have, ma'am, it is used in hospitals so that, ma'am, we can have the record of all the patients.
Very good. And what
And ma'am,
else?
all the employees, ma'am, their biodata,
Mm-hmm.
and ma'am,
Records
everything.
of employees. Yes, records of patients. Right. The pharmacy in the hospital can have the record of all the. It
Ma'am,
can have a
the
separate.
medicines. Ma'am,
Huh.
the stock of medicines, and ma'am,
Yes.
everything.
Yes, very good. It can have a stock of the medicine and inventory management system and a billing system for medicines, those who want to come and purchase the medicines and other things. Okay. And it would generate an invoice or bill also. And also it helps during surgeries also, right? Most of the equipments, testing equipments, they are completely using the computer. Okay. Computing technology in order to compute various things. So not only that, also it helps in surgeries to look into the areas which are very tiny or delicate, and also the people could, and because it is ICT, information and communication, that is not only your computer is used but also the internet is used. So doctors can communicate with each other over the internet, and they could consult on a very complicated surgery which they are performing. Okay, good. Next, which I am going to start today is, we were talking about this, that is QR scanner. So it is known as quick response code, type of matrix barcode or two-dimensional barcode, which is made up of certain things like You use text, which is alphanumeric. Okay, you use numbers, and you also use kanji characters. Kanji characters are actually, kanji is the Japanese name for Chinese characters. Okay, the ideographic Chinese characters which you might have seen, right? So those, it uses a two-dimensional, wait, a two-dimensional representation of these characters. Yes. Students, one thing which I dislike is interrupting me in between. Please avoid doing that, because once I start teaching, it really breaks my flow of words in the mind. You have anything to ask, you can write down the question, and when I tell you to ask any doubt at that time, you can ask me, right? Okay. It was first designed in 1994 for the automotive industry in Japan. Used for product tracking, item identification, time tracking, document management, general marketing, and other stuff. Uses 4 standardized encoding modes: numeric, alphanumeric, byte, binary, or kanji. Numeric consisting of only numbers. Okay, alphanumeric numbers, alphabets, special symbols, white space characters, everything. Byte or binary means representing anything in the form of bits: 1 1 0 1 1 1 0 1 and so on. Kanji characters, ideographic Chinese characters. Okay, kanji is the Japanese name for Chinese characters. If you might not know, because this is not very something common which we study. The Japanese people also, the Japanese civilization also borrowed some Chinese characters, around 2800 Chinese characters, along with their own script. Okay, so those Chinese characters are known as kanji in Japanese. So because this thing was created in Japan. Somebody is playing with the microphone. Who is it? Please keep your mic mute at all costs. Because it was created in Japan, it was first invented in Japan, hence they used kanji characters in it. You can see something over here, a QR code used on a large billboard in Japan linking to the website. Okay, this is the name of the website which is given. So anybody with a QR code scanner can stand in front of the building and just scan it and access that website. Another QR codes have been used and printed on train tickets in China since 2010. You can see it on that. Okay. Next is flatbed scanner. So you can see how a flatbed scanner looks like. You just put in your book face upside down and you press the lid and you scan it, and the whole page will be scanned. It will be converted into digital signals. This is a drum scanner. You can just take a look at it. It consists of a drum and which rotates at a very high speed. Okay, and whatever is getting scanned, it is inside the drum and it gets scanned and converted into the digital form. Next is a light pen. What is a light pen? You can see the man doing something, drawing on the screen using a pen shaped device. So this light pen is actually a kind of an input device which is used just like a stylus, and it touches on a touch screen. It is used on a touch screen computer where the screen of the computer is photosensitive. Okay, the light pen consists of photosensitive tip at its very end, and with that you can press different locations, you can perform point and click operations, you can perform drawing operations on the screen. Understood? So that is a light pen. Something like a graphic tablet which we use These days only difference is graphic tablet comes along with a tablet which you attach to the USB port of your computer and you use a pen shaped device for working on it. Next is a microphone. Everybody knows what a microphone is. I have used two pictures over here. In the first one, you can see that a microphone is integrated along with your headset. Okay. Usually it is used for those people, it comes as a gaming headset. Okay, and this is only a purely dedicated microphone which you can keep on your tabletop and you can easily talk to someone. Okay, and even this part over here, this beam over here, it can be bent at any angle to suit or adjust your height. So what a microphone does is whenever you speak something, it is in the form of analog sound waves. So these sound waves get converted into the digital form and they are stored on the computer, okay, in the form of wave files or MIDI files, okay, or MP3s. The most widely used one is MP3. Understood? Next is a web camera. Everybody knows what a web camera is. Okay, if I switch on the camera on my computer, my web camera, which is on my laptop, will be switched on. If you don't, mostly laptops have this integrated web camera, or we can say the inbuilt or built-in camera. Okay. It would have a built-in webcam. Right, so this is a built-in webcam, but this is an external webcam, which you can easily attach to your computer. You can place it, attach it at the top of your monitor and you can use it, right? Next, output devices. All devices which give out something. If this is your CPU and something is coming out of the CPU, that is your output. Okay, all the processed information which you see on the screen or see through printed through a printer or hear from your speaker, everything is your output. So one of them is CRT, cathode ray tube monitor. The second, LCD, liquid crystal display. This we have already studied in the chapter Fundamentals of Computer. We are just revisiting those topics here. Cathode ray tube. Now, what is a cathode ray tube? Normally, your computer is on the form of your computer. Nowadays, it's not much used because it is kind of obsolete. Okay. Usually, such kind of cathode ray tubes were there in large computers, large monitors, which used to be available in the market a few years ago. Okay. You would have a large bulky monitor which sits on your tabletop and it requires a lot of space. That was mainly because of this picture tube. And this picture tube is actually a cathode ray tube, right? So we have an electron gun over here. There is some problem with my... We have an electron gun over here. Which shoots electrons. Okay. And we have, now this is, now electrons come from a cathode, which is a negatively charged plate, right? And here these two are used for creating what? Magnetic field. So this, it moves from the cathode to the anode. And this magnetic field is used to deflect the electrons in some direction. You have already seen that. So I'll just go back to the previous one. And again come back. You can see it over here. This is the cathode. These are accelerating anodes. This is the focus anode, which is used to focus the electron beam on a straight path. And from here, accelerating anodes means it just it gives some speed or acceleration to the electron so that the electrons move forward and reach this screen. And you have deflection coils which create your magnetic field. And this magnetic field helps in deflecting or creating the sweeping effect on this electron beam. And that is how you see it this way. So it creates a kind of a sweep effect. And this draws images on the screen. Next is a liquid crystal display. So it works on the technology of blocking light. An LCD is made of two pieces of polarized glass. So you can see here polarized frame. This is a polarized film and this is a polarized frame. The place where I have inserted an arrow. So also called a substrate that contain a liquid crystal material between them. So this layer contains the liquid crystal. A backlight creates light. So this is the backlight which you can see, which creates light that passes through the first substrates. Wait a second, students. Okay. At the same time, electrical currents cause the liquid crystal molecules to align. Now let us see how it happens. What are liquid crystals? Liquid crystals is a state of matter which has properties between those of conventional liquids, something which is neither a liquid nor a solid. So that is a liquid crystal and it has some optical properties. That is, it can twist itself in a helical fashion. Helical fashion means the way in which DNA strands are twisted. Okay, so it can twist itself in that fashion. For instance, a liquid crystal may flow like a liquid, but its molecules may be oriented in a crystal-like way. Now, they can align themselves in a certain fashion when light passes through them. Next is what is polarized light. So you can see I've just taken a picture to explain this to you. You have a light source at the back and this is a polarizer film which contains vertical ridges. These are vertical ridges in your polarizer plate. So it acts somewhat like your sunglasses. You might have already seen what are sunglasses. When you wear sunglasses, the light outside is not glaring to the eyes. Okay, that is, it blocks certain light rays. You can see that this is unpolarized light which propagates in multiple directions. But when it is made to pass through a polarizer, then it passes only those light rays are made to pass which propagate in one single direction. Right, so you can see it over here. We have these rays also, we have perpendicular rays. So perpendicular or vertical rays are only made to pass through the vertical polarizer plate. Somewhat like sunglasses. You can see from here the light enters. So these red beams are vertical. So it is not allowed to pass through. Only certain light waves are made to pass through, which blocks extra light. So this blocking of light is itself used for what purpose? For your LCD monitor. So here you can see this is a backlight. We'll first consider the first image, that is image A. So the backlight is used and right now the voltage is in the off state. Okay. So light is made to pass, vertical light rays pass through it. And what happens is because these molecules, because voltage is off right now, the circuit is broken right now. So all these crystals of the liquid crystal material, which is sandwiched in between these two polarized plates, they are just aligned in a specific order like this. Okay, so how they are aligned? They are aligned in such a way then that when light passes through them, by the time the light reaches, it comes out of this polarizer plate, it will have turned into a horizontal light wave. Okay, this is a polarizer plate. From this, firstly, light which is propagating in all direction, it enters. What comes out? Only light propagating in the vertical direction. It is made to pass through the horizontal polarizer plate. And what happens in between these two? We have the liquid crystals which bend this light ray. So by the time it comes out, it has already become horizontal like this. Okay, you don't have to worry much about its working. It is just some extra knowledge which I am giving you. It is not given in so much detail in your textbook. Okay, it is just to make you understand so that you people are not that curious, right? So just to kill your curiosity, I am telling you all these details. So what comes out is the horizontal light wave. So when that light waves comes out, you can see that this pixel, this one point on the screen is lightened up. Understood? This is a color filter. We have three color filters: red, green, and blue. So right now you can see only the red color filter and it glows. And here, when it is in the on state, that is voltage is supplied, at that time all the liquid crystals, they realign themselves back to the horizontal direction. And now the vertical light rays which pass through this, they are blocked. So light cannot pass through it, and when light doesn't pass, this color filter appears darker because it is opaque. Understood? So this is how the intensity of light can be controlled on the different pixel positions on the screen, and this is how images are created on an LCD monitor. Normally, for a backlight in an LCD monitor, we use CCFL. It should be something like 1 second, students. Cold cathode fluorescent lamp. Please note it down. Cold cathode fluorescent lamp. In your homes, you might have seen CFL light bulbs, okay, which which consume less electricity. Instead of the traditional light bulbs or tube lights, we use CFL lights. Okay, so this uses cold cathode fluorescent lamp, that is CCFL light, as the backlight, because of which the amount of electricity consumption is lesser as compared to your CRT monitors. To the next one. No electric field. Okay, this is the technique which I have just explained to you. So that is what is LCD monitors. Now, how are LED monitors? How do LED monitors work? So instead of having a CCFL backlight, they have a series of LED lights, LED panel. Okay, a sheet consisting of many small LED lamps at the back. Okay, so that is, it uses light emitting diode as a source of light behind the screen. They are tiny and they even consume lesser electricity as compared to LCD monitors. They are much smaller, more energy efficient, and more reliable than old style incandescent lamps. Next is OLED, that is organic LED. These days, we are using this technology for creating the screens of most mobile phones. So it is a solid state semiconductor device that is 100 to 500 nanometers thick, or about 200 times smaller than a human hair. Remember this, 200 times smaller than a human hair. So it consists of the following parts: a substrate which supports the OLED, anode which removes electrons, adds electron holes when a current flows through the device, cathode, okay, which injects electrons, some organic layers, conducting layer, emissive layer. So now what happens is, You can see the layers over here. This is the conductive layer. This is the emissive layer. Now what happens? Electrical current flows from the cathode to the anode through the organic layers, giving electrons to the emissive layer. So something like this, electrons would be flowing from the cathode to the anode. Cathode is somewhere over here, and here we have the anode, and so the electrons are flowing from the cathode to the anode. And what it does is it removes electrons from the conductive layer. This is your conductive layer and this is your emissive layer. Okay, so from the conductive layer, the negatively charged particles, that is electrons, are removed. I'll just show this animation once again. So electrons are traveling, moving through this emissive layer and the conductive layer, and it has to reach the anode. Now from the conductive layer, electrons are removed from your conductive layer, and it creates something known as electron holes. Okay, next, removing electrons from the conductive layer leaves holes that needs to be filled with the electrons in the emissive layer. So now in the next part, you can see that holes and electrons, they combine, and this emits some light. This is the light which produces images on the OLED screen. The holes jump to the emissive layer, that these holes, they will jump from this emissive layer and recombine with the electron. So when they recombine, it releases what? Light. So one photon of light is released. Understood? So this is the light which actually creates the images on the OLED screen. Advantages. Okay, thank you. Yes, I have taken. An LED screen is actually an LCD screen, but instead of having a normal CCFL backlight, it uses light emitting diodes as a source of light. LED is more energy efficient and a lot smaller than a CCFL, enabling a thinner television screen. Next is a printer. Some types of printers. We have two types, impact and non-impact printers. What happened with the impact printers? They were noisy. They made a lot of noise. They usually had a print head and an ink ribbon and a hammer. This hammer was used to hammer on the ink ribbon, and this ink ribbon would print characters on the paper, and this would create a lot of noise because the print head would move from left to right and right to left and stuff like that, and this would create a lot of noise, and these printers were very slow. Okay, so in order to remove all these drawbacks, non-impact printers were created which were silent, not very noisy, not noisy at all. Okay, no ink ribbon, no hammer was used, right? Thermal technologies were used to print on the paper. So what did we have in impact printers? Dot matrix and daisy wheel printer, and in non-impact in inkjet and laser printers. Let's see them. This is what a dot matrix printer looks like. Okay, it uses a series of pins, and with the help of that you can see how the print is. Usually the print is in the form of dots, hence the name dot matrix printer. Next is a daisy wheel printer. So you can see it has a wheel which is known as a daisy wheel, and at the end of every spoke you had letters engraved on these spokes. So this daisy wheel would rotate multiple times in a second and would print characters on the paper. Next is inkjet printers. So inkjet printers, they come with color ink cartridges. You can see the ink cartridges. These days modern day printers use CMYK, that is cyan, magenta, yellow and black. CMYK. There are two types of color coding. One is RGB, which is red, green, and blue, right? And there is another one, CMYK. So this is cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. Sorry, black is represented by not B, it is represented by K. Understood? CMYK. Because B stands for blue. That is why they have used the K of black to represent black color. So it happens by spreading, it has a nozzle, and that nozzle spreads ink on the paper. Next is a laser printer. So you can just see how a laser printer is working. Inside it actually has a kind of a drum on which dry ink is used. Dry ink is also known as toner. Okay, firstly, the image of the page which you have to print, that image is printed on that image appears on the drum, okay, in the form of electrical charges. So how it is done? Something like this. Not shown here. I'll show it a little later. You don't have to learn the entire working of the laser printer, just I'll tell you a little bit. So what happens is on certain areas on the drums, the entire page which is to be printed, its image is somewhat coded, okay, in the form of electrical charges. Now paper is made to roll on it, and what is applied? Toner, that is dry ink. Now wherever the charge was applied on this drum, the toner gets attached to those locations and the paper moves through the drum, and you can see how the images or text, everything is created. This dry toner, dry ink is finally fused with the paper using heat, and when it comes out, you can see that the paper is very hot. Okay, so it is a very fast printer which prints pages per minute. That is ppm. Okay, something like this. You can see how it works. Next is a plotter. A plotter is a very large printer. Very large printer. Basically, this plotter is used by graphic designers or people who want to print maps or codings or kiosks. Understood? So for those, for flex printing and all, it is used. So you can see a small plotter over here which is plotting an image, and they are very good in printing nice complicated images. Okay, usually there is a kind of a beam to which a pen is attached, and that pen is used to draw items, right? And sometimes they can also look like these. You can see the image and understand how a plotter works. Next is a speaker. Everybody knows what a speaker is. The image which is saved on our computer in the digital form, okay, that comes out of the speaker in the form of sound waves. Understood? That is analog signals. Analog sound waves. So this is how these work. Next is, what is memory? We have our computer's memory. It is like a predefined workspace. Now, when we talk about memory, students, something like storage comes into your mind. That is the need to store data. And we can store data in the form of two things. Either we can store it in the primary memory, or we can store it in the secondary memory. Right. Now, primary memory consists of two types. One is RAM and one is ROM. So let's see what memory is. It is like a predefined workspace which temporarily stores information and data. That is, if electricity goes off, data will completely be removed. But that is only for RAM. This is only for RAM, not for ROM. Why? Because ROM stands for read-only memory. In a short while, we will see what is read-only memory. Students, one thing I would like to explain to you, that is, listen very carefully here. What is the difference between ROM and RAM? Why are we calling it as a primary memory? So understand that very carefully. When I say memory, it is normally divided into two parts: primary memory and secondary memory. We're talking about primary memory, we have RAM and ROM. And secondary memory, we have magnetic disks and tapes. We have optical disks. Then we have something known as solid state drives. We have memory sticks. And one more, we have flash drive. That is USB flash drive. So RAM stands for random access memory data, and it is also known as a volatile memory because whatever you store in the RAM, it will get erased as soon as you switch off the computer. But ROM stands for read-only memory. It is permanent. Everything which you write on it is permanent. And it is used for some specialized applications which we will see in a different while. So this ROM is different from secondary memory. Please remember that. Okay. Now, each memory location, that is RAM location, has a unique memory address. So whenever we say memory, we are always referring to RAM. So you can see that each location has a specific memory address. It is volatile. Memory is divided into cells. Each cell is further broken into bits. You can consider one cell to be consisting of 8 bits. That is 1 byte. A bit is a binary digit, 0 or 1. Number of bits equals data or instructions. Some units of memory. 1 bit equals 0 or 1. Please write it down in your copies, everyone. 1 byte equals 8 bits. 1 KB equals 1024 bytes. 2 raised to the power 10 is equal to 1024 bytes. 1 MB is equal to 1024 kilobytes. 1 gigabyte, 1 terabyte, 1 petabyte, 1 exabyte, 1 zettabyte. So all of them are equal to 1024 of the next lower type of memory unit. Please write this down in the copy quickly.
But is given in the book also.
I know. But you people usually don't read your books, dear. So if you write it, it's not going to cause any harm. Give me a yes if you have completed writing.
Have written.
Written.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Next is parts of main memory, RAM and ROM, as I said before. So RAM memory cells can be accessed for information from any desired location. Process of locating a word in memory is the same, requires equal amount of memory, hence the name random access, because we can store anything from anywhere. All we need to do is just provide the address. Who provides the address? The CPU provides the address. What happened?
Ma'am, due to some issue, my call got disconnected. So I rejoined.
Due to some issue, what happened?
Ma'am, my call got disconnected. So I rejoined the meeting.
Okay, doesn't matter. If you have joined the meeting, that is fine. Good that you told me. Okay, so you have already seen that memory is divided into various cells and each cell has a particular address. So all you need to do is just specify what information you want. CPU will generate the address from where it can be accessed from RAM, and that address is used to extract the desired information from the RAM. Okay, and this process of extracting data from the memory is the same for all the memory cells. That is why the name random access. That is, I can access anything randomly from any place. It's not like if I have to access the last memory location, it will take more time to access the data than it would have taken when I had to access it from the first location. Because for every location, the amount of time required for data transfer would be the same. Just like, I'll give you an analogy, kind of a comparison. You people, have you seen the cassette tape recorder, something like this? Wait, let me show it to you. Have you ever seen this thing in your lives?
Yes, ma'am.
You have
Yes,
seen
I've
Yes,
seen.
ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
cassette tape
Yes,
recorder?
ma'am.
Normally, what we
Cassettes.
used to do was, we used to do it a lot. We used to insert a pencil inside and we used to wind and rewind it. Okay. And normally the cassette tape recorder, it used to have a rewind and fast forward button. Suppose you don't like the first and the second song, but you like the third song very much. So what you would have to do, you would have to either listen to the first and second song, then reach the third song, or you had to forward it, fast forward it, and stop and listen and try to figure out whether you are at the beginning of the third song or not. So multiple hit and trials you had to do in that case. So this is not the case with CD drive. What happens in CD drive? You just insert the CD into the CD player, okay, and you just provide the track number using the remote. Okay, suppose you want to listen to track number 5. So just press 5 and the 5th track starts playing. So what is this? CD drive is an example of random access, whereas the cassette tape is an example of sequential access, which is not used by RAM. Got it?
Yes, ma'am.
Now read-only memory. Read-only memory performs only read operation. Basically, there are certain chips on your motherboard of your computer, not only computer, but many computing devices which you see around you. They would have a chip, integrated circuit chip, which would already contain the program embedded into it. Okay, it has no write capability, means already whatever program is needed, it is already embedded or written once by the manufacturer of that chip. Okay, you cannot write or change anything in that. It is non-volatile. Data always remains permanent on this. used in ROM BIOS, a monitor program controlling the PC. So on your computer also you have a motherboard, right? On the motherboard you have a ROM BIOS chip, some chip which looks like this, and on that it contains a program known as basic input output system. So this program is a diagnostic program which enables your computer to start efficiently, perform the complete resource and device check, and load in the operating system kernel. Understood? So the program which is there in ROM BIOS, it is fixed. A kind of ROM is also used in your smartphones to store factory apps, if you have heard that. Okay, so factory apps are some certain things which you cannot uninstall because they are stored in ROM. But usually these ROMs are electrically erasable, programmable read-only memories, that is EPROMs. EPROMs, they make use of electricity to reprogram the ROM. So that is what is known as rooting. When you root your mobile phone, okay, and what happens is when you are rooting your mobile phone becomes vulnerable to viral attacks. Understood? So you should never use this rooting, right? Because usually factory apps, yes.
Ma'am, can you please tell me the name of this font style in which you have written the 4 points?
It is Buxton Sketch.
And which one?
I'm typing it here.
Buxton Sketch.
Okay. Next is secondary storage, also known as auxiliary storage. Hard disk drives come under this category, and they are basically magnetic disks. They come under the category of magnetic disks. It stores information on one or more circular platters. Usually we have circular platters which is coated with a magnetic material. Okay, and there is a motor at the bottom which rotates these platters at a very high speed, some 5,000 to 15,000 rotations per minute per second. Understood? So these are platters. So these platters are stacked one on top of the other on a spindle, as you can see in the image, and they spin continuously. They are coated with a magnetic material. Information is read or written by magnetic heads. Heads are mounted on axis arms. Information is recorded in bands called tracks. Tracks are divided into sectors. Watch this animation carefully. So we have something known as a platter, and platter is divided into these concentric circles which are known as tracks, and tracks are divided into sectors, as you can see over here. This one shaded area, somebody has kept the mic on. Please switch it off. Do not unmute yourself until and unless I tell you. So you can see this shaded area over here. This is a sector. So likewise, multiple platters can have multiple tracks and sectors. So 5 platters you can see. These are tracks, and this is a spindle which is attached. And this spindle rotates at a very high speed because it is attached to a high speed motor. There is another arm assembly which contains all the magnetic arms, read or write head. And each read or write head, it clamps the platters. Okay, one read or write head is on the top of the platter, another one is below the platter. So this is known as arm, and this is the read or write head. When you again somebody has Anjali Thakur, please keep yourself muted. Students, do not leave the meeting until and unless I tell you. I know the time is over, but I'm going to complete the topic. Okay. So you can see the dotted lines which are connecting the platters of same size. So these dotted lines create an imaginary cylinder. So this is how tracks are made on your hard disk. And this is how sectors are made on your tracks. Data is saved on the sectors. And this is a sector. One shaded area which you can see, that is a sector. Now, your magnetic disk, it is covered with magnetic material which is divided into magnetic grains. Some of those magnetic grains are collected to form region for 1 bit. Like you can see over here, certain regions are there. Like how many regions are there? 5 regions. So each of these 5 regions will be used to represent 1 bit. This could represent 1, this could represent 0, 0, 1, 1, and so on. Okay, so likewise, your magnetic disk is covered with regions collecting grain. So this is 1 bit. In magnetic material, you can consider each of them. Okay, and the magnets are aligned in any random direction. By applying electricity and magnetic field, they can be aligned in a specific direction. Like over here, you can see that this alignment can be considered as 1 and this alignment can be considered as 0. Rest of the discussion we will do in the next class. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.